Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pop Corner, not associated with Pop Corners because we're not sponsored, but this is my one and only new podcast where we're going to be looking at movies that we like, and more specifically right now, Scream from 1996.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Yes. And obviously that wasn't me just doing a different voice. That is my friend.
Nah, my name is Mr. Meeseeks.
Look at me.
My name's Draven. I'm here to start helping out with these podcasts here. We're just, deciding to start a little thing going because, there's so many movies coming out these days, and we're just nerds, and that's all it is.
Yeah, pretty much. So we're starting with Scream, and the goal is one Scream movie a week until the new movies come out. And the new movie comes out, and I didn't really plan it out, so I hope it lands and we don't have to wait an extra week to watch it, because we won't. So, yeah. But we just got done watching the first Scream movie like 40 minutes ago, and it was probably my third time ever watching it, and you've seen it?
Probably about 50,
yeah,
at the least.
And with numbers like that, you'd think you'd never seen any other movie ever, but that's not true.
I really haven't.
Well, fair enough. Introductory, before we get into it, I think some good questions to start out. Who am I? Most, if anyone from my channel already knows me as Falling Hurts. My name is Coleman. I don't really say that ever or often. But movies I like, the number one movie of all time, in my opinion, is Aliens, the sequel with the S at the end. I don't know, I just think it has everything in it. It's got the sci-fi, it's got action, a little bit of horror, but mostly, and a little bit of romance, just everything you need in a movie. And it does it tastefully, not too many bad words, not too much grotesque visuals, and no nudity. And, it just doesn't rely on any of that. And James Cameron's the best.
My name is Draven. I'm a newcomer here on Falling Hurts. I actually have my own channel, but it still has not been used at all. It is called Boowenz, Boowenz. Give myself a little shout out there. As far as I go, my number one...
Shout out to Boowenz.
Anyway, as my number one film is, funny enough, this movie we're describing today, Scream. I am a huge Scream fanatic. I have watched the entire series, including the one that just came out last year, Scream 5, probably about 20 times at the least. I'm a horror fanatic in general, so any type of horror movie, I've seen it. I'm not really into action movies, comedies, none of that stuff really. Every once in a while I'll tune in, but all horror, baby. So I have good and high opinions on this movie, and yeah.
All right, well, I guess with that being said, there's a lot of pressure on this movie. If you didn't know you already loved it, that's a lot of pressure for me to enjoy it.
Well, that's what makes it special, because you've only seen it a handful of times. I've seen it a bunch of times, and we get to see the different opinions based on that.
Since... I guess to kind of lead into an overall kind of review, you obviously think it's pretty highly of it. I guess jumping into a review, the first time I've ever really looked at the movie critically and not as wow, it's the scary movie.
Stop.
But first time looking at it, it's actually pretty good, and I think it's set up pretty well. I guess the best way to say that is knowing who the killers are in advance, which, full spoilers. The movie's almost 30 years old.
Sorry, man. Some people out there have not seen this film, so you can't be saying spoilers. Nah, go ahead. No, everyone has seen it, and if for some reason you haven't seen it, go watch it. But also, the killers are named Billy and Stu.
Yeah. So knowing that going into the movie, it's interesting watching and seeing which ghost. First off, there being two ghost faces. It really throws you. It's supposed to throw you for a ringer for the first time around. Looking and watching and figuring out who is in which scene, or all the hints that are actually kind of sprinkled throughout the movie. It's pretty interesting to see, especially when you know what to look for, on a second or even third viewing, like this one was for me. I did appreciate that a lot more. Overall, I thought the movie was paced pretty well.
I mean, honestly, though, like I said, as for me, I view these movies very highly. I honestly think all of Scream 5 movies are honestly 10 out of 10s. Yes, even Scream 3, the one that is very looked down upon, which, yes, I get it, but no. Here's the thing, though. I think what makes these movies so good for me is, when you go to a movie, and I see a movie, I usually watch it once and I'm done, unless, every once in a while, like a few years later, I'm like, hey, let's go check that out and see if I remember liking it or not. I think the thing that makes it fun with Scream is, like, most of the time when you go and watch it for the first time, you're getting there, all the suspense, seeing all the kills for the first time, and you're trying to figure out who the killer is or killers. And then obviously big reveal, third act comes out. Hey, you get your killers and you get to see if your fan theories in your head the whole time was correct or not. But then flash forward to when you watch it the next time, then you know who the killers already are, which makes the experience a whole lot different because now, like my friend Coleman here was saying, you get to look at these scenes differently because you get to see, hey, what were they doing in these scenes? Or where was this person at during this scene? Like, you know who the killers are, so you can look at to see where they were at during specific scenes where the killer was perhaps killing someone, or where the killer was just seen walking across the woods or house, wherever scene you're in. So I think that's what makes it special for me. It definitely is a lot different from any other horror movie, so that's where I stand at here.
Of all the movies that I would compare this first Scream movie specifically to, I would actually compare it to the Knives Out sequel, the Glass Onion movie that just came out.
Okay.
You haven't seen that?
No, I've only seen the original, yes.
Yes. Okay, so without spoiling, the basic idea is a glass onion is like glass, you see through it, like the mystery is self-evident, like it's revealed instantly. The petals of the onion are just layers of fluff. It misleads you, but you see the answer the whole time.
Okay,
that's basically what Billy is. They're throwing you all. They are thinking, oh, as the watcher, you're like, oh, it can't be him. They're hinting at him this early in the movie. He can't be the killer. And then they try to do the whole, he's in jail during the one attack scene, and they try to throw you off. I couldn't help but compare it, like this time, having just seen the Knives Out sequel, to where it's basically the same thing. It's the most obvious answer, and my boy, what's the horror fanatic's name?
Oh, Randy.
Randy
Meeks.
He had it right the whole time.
Yeah, he did.
And
he didn't catch on to Stu, but he did catch on to Billy.
Well, nobody catches on to Shaggy. Let's be
True.
real.
Well, I think that's a funny thing you point out there, though, is with Billy, like, the movie really drilled, like, this is something that only the original Scream does. All the other Screams, like, they don't drill it in your head, hey, this is the killer. This whole time during this entire film, they are drilling it into your head that Billy is the killer. Like, look at him. Boyfriend, super sketchy. He's coming in at the time that Ghostface disappears. They're really putting it in there. Like, hey, he's the killer. But here's the thing. They do that scene later on at the end where he's like, what do I got to do to prove that I'm not a killer? And then literally 2 seconds later, Ghostface comes around the corner.
Yeah.
And then they, obviously, spoiler alert again, Billy's the killer, or one of them. But they do a little prank there where he's got, like, corn syrup and, like, it looks like he gets stabbed.
And the blood doesn't look as good as the rest of the effects in the movie. So you can already tell something's up.
Yeah, but, like, when you watch it for the first time, you're like, oh, man, that's not. Yeah,
right,
okay,
right.
Oh, cool.
They ran out of budget there for a minute. Oh, well,
Like, yeah, that's what I find really interesting, though, about the first one specifically, is because no other movie tries to pin it on someone like this hard, and then end up doing a twist like this. That's why I think the first film is just better in general. Like I said, I love all of them, but the first film definitely is the superior one to me, if you had to rank them.
Something that I stopped myself from mentioning earlier upstairs when we're recording this in my basement, by the way, in case you...
Basement dwellers!
Yeah, basement dwellers. If you didn't pick up on that. One thing I wanted to mention was that the basement dwellers thing got me.
I think I messed them up a little bit.
No, okay, yes. Okay, so sorry, it's late for me. So Scream 1, having watched all 5 now, at least once, it feels like where other horror movie franchises would start to parody themselves later on, and using those same tropes against the audience who... Like, if you're watching Halloween and you see a closet, you think, oh, the girl's going to hide in the closet. Mm-hmm. And then when she runs by the closet, you're like, oh, well, they're going to play it different this time. Well, Scream feels like it's, ahead of the game of, using its own series tropes before the series has even been a thing yet.
Well, that's what I think is so special about this movie and this franchise.
Because it's troping other horror.
Yeah, because as soon as it came into the book, it was, you watch the first movie, they referenced so many different horror movies throughout the entire movie. Yeah. You got Halloween which is the best part. at the very end, third act, with Halloween playing in the background. You even hear the audio and all that stuff being played. But you got Halloween, you got, they do Texas Chainsaw, they mention Leatherface.
Yes.
They mention Psycho. They mention all these different horror...
Have you seen Psycho?
Yes.
Yeah.
But they mention all these different horror films, and like Randy Meeks is over here saying every time he's on screen, he's referencing something.
Yes.
And it just came right out into the open, like, hey, we're going to be different from all the other horror movies. At least in the 90s.
Right. I mean, has there been any series that's sprouted up since Scream?
Honestly.
Is it the last slasher that emerged and like stayed relevant in pop culture?
You mean like out of the icons, right? Like,
yes.
Yes. Ghostface.
Like there's like Ghostface, there's Leatherface kinda, I guess.
He's in there, but he's my least favorite as well.
He's the ugly stepchild.
But yeah, you got your Jason, you got your Michael, you got your Leatherface, you got your Freddy, and then Ghostface being in that bunch. Some people don't include Ghostface, but I will, and most people do. So Ghostface, out of the OG slashers,
I feel like if this was like a Thanksgiving dinner and like all of the slashers show up, I feel like Ghostface is like the one like younger cousin who didn't quite hit the age gap that the rest of them did.
Yeah.
So they're still joking around and they're being a kid while the rest have all grown up.
Yeah, for
they're
sure.
All killing.
I was gonna say Ghostface was way later on. I mean, you got Chucky too. Like Chucky's considered OG slasher, but like I would say out of like the big
Megan.
No, Megan is not. But out of all the big slashers, yes, Ghostface was probably one of the last ones to be added to that roster. I think that's the reason why Scream is consistently a good franchise, is because, like I was telling you earlier, before we started this podcast, the original franchise was meant to be a trilogy. There was 3 movies back to back to back, basically. And then they stopped. 2010, or I think it was 11. 2011 comes around. Wes Craven comes back like after all these years, and he has an idea for, I think it was reboots was the meta commentary on that one. And
for 5?
No, for 4.
For 4.
Yeah,
okay.
5 was a requel.
Yes, you're right.
So I believe 4 was reboots, and then sadly Wes Craven passed away. But then Radio Silence comes in.
Was the idea for that to be a trilogy as well?
No, that was just one and done thing.
Okay, yes. So it was never meant to be more than his death. Okay, gotcha.
Unless he would have came back with another idea, of course.
Right.
But he passed, and then the torch was given to Radio Silence. Radio Silence comes in and gives us 5, which was about requels.
Right.
And I loved 5 too, but I think that's what makes it consistently good, is that they have an idea panned out already before going into the franchise and going with it. They don't just, they go Halloween, they go Friday the 13th and stuff. Like, there's good movies, and they're amazing. But
I can only name from, like, Friday the 13th, Halloween. I can only name like maybe 2 good movies from each of those franchises, though, or 2 that I would want to watch again.
Yeah, but
I would watch all of these.
Yeah,
at least one more time.
I think that's the thing, though. Like, there's just so many. There's so many misses more than there is hits in a lot of these franchises, and I think that's what Scream does differently. Is most of it is consistently good.
When Scream ends.
Don't ever say that again. Halloween Ends. If there's anyone actually listening to this who loved Halloween Ends,
come back around Halloween time, and we might have something for you.
Oh, are we? We're doing that?
Might as well.
Oh, no.
Maybe we'll put all 3 in one.
Yeah,
podcast.
do the trilogy.
Yeah, that way we don't waste all of Halloween, like all of October on.
Okay.
One
I'd be down that. I'd be down to
shit.
go down that route. But yeah. Okay, so talking Scream, you watched it for the first... I watched it with you the first time.
Yes.
Care to tell everyone that's listening who you thought the original killer was?
Yeah, it was Dewey the whole time. I denied at the time that Scary Movie had any impact on that, and I'm not for sure that subconsciously it didn't. But, there was a few times in this movie that they make everybody a little sketch. But watching the movie again, I realized that Dewey has a lot of riz. He's laying it on pretty thick with Gale.
Gale Weathers X Dewey, let's go!
Yeah. One thing that I will talk about later is that that is one trope that I hate or I guess it's a trope. Yeah, it's one thing that all the Scream movies do once they get together. I don't like that in each sequel they have to explain how they broke up.
Okay, yeah,
I don't like that in movies. Yeah. In movies, I don't like it when it's like, oh, we see them happy at the end, and then they've broken up, and we get to see that. Like they do. I feel like they do it every movie.
But here's the thing: as far as Scream 1 goes, that hasn't happened.
No, yes, perfectly fine. Perfect, and that once again, why I would probably put Scream 1 above them all is because I have less of those little complaints, comparatively to 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, you couldn't really avoid it because they'd already broken up.
Okay, so you originally thought the killer was Dewey. I watched it, like I said,
But I did always think there was 2.
really?
Yeah.
I see. Me going in the first time, I was a wee lad, so I watched it. I was a '99 kid, so I was definitely a baby when this came out. Just kidding, I wasn't even born. But I didn't obviously watch this until way later after it released.
Yeah, at least 2001.
Yeah, but the thing is when watching it, I was still a little brain, and I was just watching it for fun. And honestly, I only thought there was going to be one killer. I didn't have. But you watched the Scream series before the movies, correct?
Not the first one.
I thought you watched the series.
No, my first any interaction with Scream was the first movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, going in, I honestly probably, it's hard to remember, but I want to say I did think it was Billy. But that's just because it was kind of hammering it on you, and I'm like, oh, cool, Billy's the killer. I definitely didn't see Stu coming or 2. I was like, hold on, wait a minute. So that was cool. As far as survivors go, and did anyone surprise you that lived? Did you think that there was anyone that survived that you're like, wait a minute, I figured they would have died?
Randy.
Randy? Really?
100%.
The guy who knows everything about horror movies you thought was going to die.
I mean, he said it himself, he was breaking half the rules.
But okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah, he did list the 3 rules, but he was still a virgin, so therefore.
Right. It's saving grace right there.
Yeah.
Going back to the killers, one thing I did want to mention was we get a lot of the backstory of Sydney, a character I think we haven't really talked about much, but the protagonist, Sydney, whose mother was killed a year prior to the events of this movie.
Yes.
Who she had originally thought she had kind of, testified and, pointed out the suspect and had him imprisoned. She comes to believe that, false, incorrect, because it's Gail, right? Gail's like, no, I don't think you got the right guy.
Yeah, because Gail is writing the book
right,
over the death and the murders and all that.
Yes.
And Sydney thought it was Colin, yeah. I don't know why I said that. I'm a fake Scream fan. Cotton.
Yes.
I don't know why I said that.
I thought you were trying to say she was calling her out. I was
No.
maybe. I mean, kind of.
Sydney thought it was Cotton Weary was the murderer and the person who killed her mom. Because she saw what she thought was Cotton, which was Billy, walk out with the jacket and saw the back of the head and stuff and just saw the back view. Right. And she figured and thought it was Cotton. And it was framed on him because that's what she thought she saw.
Right. Which was the point I was getting to as we talk about Cotton, the character who she falsely accused, and then also Billy, the actual killer this time around, is that they wear the same hairstyle. And, at a quick glance, I wasn't wearing my glasses when I was watching the movie just a second ago, and I actually thought, I was like, why are they showing Billy go to jail on TV?
That's awesome.
And I actually thought that's what I was like, I don't remember that scene. And then I put my glasses back on from cleaning, and I was like, oh, wait, I was like, it all makes sense now. Like, that was one of those teases that you don't really pick up on, like, watching the movie for the first time, that the actual killer and then the guy she falsely accuses have the same hairstyle. Mm-hmm. And even if they were wearing the same jacket, one would assume that there's probably a similar make and model there, that, it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to assume who the actual killer would be from that point on, had I actually been paying attention and not thinking it was Dewey the whole time.
Yeah, the whole first time that I watched this with him, every single time something would happen, he's like, Dewey's the killer! And it was a fun time watching him watch it for the first time. So Randy, huh? You really thought Randy was going to die?
I thought every character that did die probably should have, except for the principal. I still never, even knowing that he's meant to be a distraction, I guess maybe I was trying to think of why did it have to be him? And I guess my only real thought was all the students hated him, so they would want to see him.
I don't see why they would hate him. No, that man was a Chad dude over here, absolutely roasting all the kids that were running around with the Ghostface outfits.
Well, he told them all he loved them over the speakerphone.
Yeah. So. Let's talk to Tatum real quick. So,
the friend.
Yes.
The Dewey's.
Can we just talk about her?
Too soon.
Okay. Her iconic scene, obviously, in the garage, the beer. That whole fight scene right there.
She had it.
She had it, 100%. She could have took... I don't know. I imagine Billy, because it shows Stu later on, at the door, and Billy shows up. Yeah. So I imagine it was Billy who was killing her or attacking her. And let's be real, Tatum was kicking his ass.
I thought we were getting, juked out there for a minute on who the actual protagonist was. I was like,
Yeah, Tatum was an iconic character in general, but that scene though, like where the whole beer thing, she's like, "Oh man," she's like, "You want me to play the victim and you be the killer?" And then like she was putting in some work on him.
Nice little nod head there.
It's a shame that she decided to go the way out of the door.
Yeah,
the cat door was so.
All she had to do was when she was standing by the locked door is hit the garage door to go up, and then by the time she got over there, she would have been able to crouch underneath.
True. If obviously Billy at the time, I imagine, didn't stop it. I mean, that's what he did originally, but
yeah,
but he was knocked down. Yeah, he was knocked down.
He was on the ground, and she tried to go for the door. The door was locked, or she couldn't get the door open.
Yeah, the door was
locked.
locked.
Then she goes to go through the cat door. And I'm like, well, the button was right there. You could have just went ahead.
Well, it's a horror movie, so what do you guess? But also at the same time, like, you always have the people that say when you're in these type of situations, you don't think, right?
Yeah, she wasn't.
Yeah, she definitely wasn't.
She definitely wasn't.
It's a shame because out of everyone that died, I feel like she was the one that I wish would have lived. I mean, I would have loved to see more Stu, because Stu is just...
Well, so, out of curiosity...
But he's a killer, so...
You've talked about how that's like the most probably iconic death
probably
of this movie.
Yes, of this movie, I would say hers is the most iconic death because it was different. It wasn't just a knife stab. Nothing wrong with stabbings, but that was definitely.
Is that your favorite moment of this movie?
Of this movie, like,
or do you have a favorite moment?
Favorite moment's third act in general, like just the reveal,
like the whole thing.
Yeah, the whole third act.
My favorite is when the cameraman comes out of the van and he sees the door open. He goes, "Oh shit, we're on a 30-second delay."
Mm-hmm.
I wish that wait in between, that moment of dread, like, oh no, where's he at? Because he's not where it was. And it shows very quickly, it pans over to like the delayed camera where he steps back away from Randy in the living room. And like just a second later, the camera guy's dead. I wish they would have played it up just a little bit more and it would have been so much cooler.
Honestly though, that part I'm still considering the third act.
I know it is. It is. It's a part of it.
I'm considering the third act like at the point where all the kids leave and they all go to the football stadium to go look at the principal. Because I immediately, as soon as Dewey goes into the house and you hear the Halloween doing all its sounds and audio designs in the background as he's like checking the closets and stuff, that part is where I begin the third act for me.
That is one silly man right there.
Dewey is a legend, and yeah, that's all I can really say about him. There's nothing else you can say other than he is the best character. But yeah, we should probably talk about Sydney more because she is the pro tag, and we haven't really touched on her like at all.
I know.
But Neve Campbell, you're a legend.
Yeah. Has she been in anything else?
Oh yeah, she's been in a lot of stuff.
What's she been in? Scream 2?
Yeah, Scream 2. Scream 3.
Yeah.
Scream 4.
She's actually got a
Scream 5 too, actually.
Not Scream 6. She got a pretty wide variety. No, she'll get that Marvel post-credit scene.
She better get that post-credit scene, dude. Yeah. Imagine like the credits roll and you think it's over and then you just hear the phone ring and it goes, "Hello, Sydney." There we go.
Hello,
easy.
Sydney.
But now she's been in a lot of different stuff. I don't know any of the movies because they're all like 90s and like I've watched them. But
so she had an era.
Yeah,
and then she was like, all right.
She was the scream queen basically of the 90s and early 2000s. You had obviously Jamie Lee Curtis back in the day when Halloween was first coming out.
How do you think? Like I'm sure Jamie Lee Curtis has seen the movie Scream.
Of course.
How do you think she feels about that movie?
I mean, she's already talked about like actually fully like when she wasn't getting paid for Scream 6, like where she said, "Hey, I'm not going to join because I'm not getting paid fairly," which 100% on Neve's side. Yeah. But she was talking about how she supports Neve and like she's another Scream queen. Like I mean, I imagine
Scream Queens was a show, right?
Yes.
Is that related?
No.
At all?
No.
Has nothing to do with like the Scream canon.
No, not at all. That's a completely different show, and Jamie Lee Curtis is in that show.
I know. I knew that. That was about all I knew.
But no, that has nothing to do with the Scream franchise.
Gotcha. Okay, I was gonna say because that would be a blind spot for me if it was. But anyway, yeah, no, they just talk about Jamie Lee Curtis surviving horror movies and her boobs the whole time.
Oh, so, and in this one, in Scream.
But I'm sure she doesn't care. She's fine.
I mean, she did that stuff in the Halloween movies, so I mean I'm sure she doesn't really care too much. I mean she was up for doing it, so
yeah. But in Halloween?
Yeah.
Crazy time. Don't remember that.
My man needs to get a refresher. But
oh god. But back to Sydney, I don't know. I don't think she's a super compelling character in the first half of the movie, if I'm being honest with you. Like in the beginning, before we know more about like the mom backstory and everything, like then it starts to get more interesting. But at first, it's just like, oh, a boyfriend. Do I trust my boyfriend? Do I not? Dad's not even there. So we don't really get to see a lot of interaction with other characters from Sydney until
Yeah.
like the second half of the movie.
Yeah, that's true.
And then after this, like she's cemented as like, you know, great character throughout the rest of the movies.
I was gonna say
5 was a little
was she
lesser.
Yeah, but as focusing on Scream 1, I think like obviously, you know, it was an introduction to all the characters. You know,
Right,
like
yeah.
I mean, obviously, you know, you go to the group like after the first killing of Casey Becker, you go to the group where it shows literally.
Well, we'll have to talk about that too.
Yeah.
Yes.
After the first killing of Casey Becker, it goes to the fountain scene where there's like, you know, all the characters.
and it shows both killers.
Yeah.
As well as all the other victims.
Billy,
right
Stu, Randy, Tatum, Sydney. It shows all of them.
Right.
And obviously in that moment, you're right. Like Sydney is definitely the most blandest character at that moment. Like everyone else is
Right.
making jokes, cracking stuff. Like you got Liver alone. You got, you know, Billy just telling him to shut the fuck up. You got Tatum just, you
It's
know.
like a cult of personality.
Yeah, and then Sydney's
hers was
kinda-
like the blank slate.
She's kind of like, yo, let's not talk about this. This is
Right.
screwed up. You know,
Right,
like
right,
she's
right.
just a pure innocent soul just kind of chilling.
Yeah.
But obviously, as the movie goes on, we follow Sydney more and we learn more how much of a, like, just straight up beating the heck out of Ghostface at every time she gets attacked. And she just becomes a more interesting character. And I think it stays throughout after you get to the second half of this movie. Throughout, Sydney becomes, in my opinion, my favorite final girl. I like Jamie Lee Curtis and I love Laurie Strode, but as a fanboy of Scream, I love Neve Campbell a lot, and that is my number one Scream. Scream Queen. So,
To be a final girl, you have to survive, right?
yes, you have to be the main character to survive. Yes.
I guess by default, she would also have to be mine.
Really?
In a technicality.
I figured yours would have been Laurie Strode, to be honest.
Laurie Strode, no, I mean, you forget that, well, I don't really care too much about those movies, if I'm being honest. Like, the first one's great.
So the first Halloween's amazing.
But that's it. Like, after that, I'm like, I'm checked out. You know, they fucked with the canon. They're like, all right,
Halloween 3?
best one. Best. Well, which one are you talking about? Are you talking about Halloween Kills?
No. I'm talking Halloween 3, the cult. The one that you were mistaking earlier is Friday the 13th.
Yes.
No.
Well, they're both, you know, original Halloween 3 or Halloween Kills are both Oscar-worthy pictures, in my opinion.
Okay.
But I think an important thing to actually think about when it comes to Final Girls is, like, was it circumstance that made it to where they were the final survivor, or did they show the wit throughout?
Okay, yeah, I see what you
And
mean.
where I think Sydney stands above in that scene, you know, after Bang-A-Lang towards the end of the movie there, when she's like, well, who did you call?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel like some characters would have just, you know, let it slide, you know, didn't think about it. Not something I necessarily would have thought about.
True.
But she, you know, she did her double checking, and, you know, that was like a survival quality for her, kind of, so.
Well, it's funny, too, at that moment, if it wasn't for Stu dressed up as Ghostface at the time coming in to fake Billy's
Right.
death,
Yes,
she probably
she would've-
would have been like, hey, wait a minute, hold up.
Hang on, yeah, because she was
backing up. She was like, hold on, wait a minute. You might be the killer still.
like, oh my God, and then
Then she
Ghostface
looks
was-
up,
and
yeah.
she said, oh my God.
Yeah, I was going to say.
That first one was definitely at him.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there are scenarios where she got lucky too that wasn't final.
Right.
Like, let's
No,
say
right.
when she's getting chased after this scene that we just talked about with Billy, quote unquote, dying, she gets chased around Stu's house a little bit, and then she's hanging out by the window screaming for help, and then Ghostface goes to stab her, I imagine, in the hands or wherever. I don't remember if he just went for it, and then she fell.
That's durability.
She
There we
fell.
go, we're set.
Okay, but she fell, and obviously she got saved by the boat. Remember the boat, and it has the tarp over it, and
Right.
she gets saved by
Yeah,
that.
she
Without
rolled-
that, she probably would have died.
She rolls off and runs into the
Yeah.
woods and runs Gail off the road.
No, Gail ran herself off the road.
You're not wrong.
But yeah, like Sydney is a good character in this movie, and the franchise as a whole, she was definitely one of my favorites, other than Dewey. I was gonna say Dewey was definitely my number one just because of how goofy he gets. But Sydney, being the final girl that she is, she has a lot of good chase scenes. She has a lot of scenes where she's fighting back, and she has a lot of scenes where she actually shows more smarts than stupidity.
You know what we need to do?
What's that?
We need, I don't know, maybe after we've done this for a while and we've covered a few different franchises, we need to do a Final Girl tier list.
Ooh, I would be down for that. And we should and obviously we'll watch them, we'll probably get a refresher on all these movies with all the Final Girls in it. That way we can put in
we won't even watch the movies. We'll just watch like fan cams.
Oh, really? just binge watch fan cams and be like, all right, this one right here. Now, that's the thing,
Laurie
though.
Strode
Like,
fan cam.
instead of like basing it off a bias, we can actually put in like, qualities of survivability, smartness, and like,
I mean,
and rank it as
realistically
to
speaking,
who would survive over others, like
Right.
who would be the least final girl to survive like a really tragic event versus, I
We
would
all
be.
know Ellen Ripley's at the top.
Oh, that's so.
Mm-hmm. The only reason I can't call her a final girl is she technically doesn't live. I mean, do you count
technically-
the whole franchise, or do you count a single movie?
Because technically, if you're counting it off of that, I mean, Laurie Strode isn't. She dies.
Does she?
Yeah.
When did she die?
She dies in like Halloween. Oh my God, which one even is it? I'm blanking. Halloween.
Spoilers for Halloween, whatever it is.
It wasn't H2O, was it? Because H2O
No,
is the one
no,
where
it
she
wasn't
has
H2O.
the
That's at the
son.
that's at the campus, right?
Yeah, I believe
Yeah,
so. That's the
you know,
one.
we're like an estate or whatever. They're staying somewhere.
Man, I'm blanking on
I rem-
Halloween movies.
I
But
remember
there-
H2O.
Yes, there is a movie where she dies, and then they pass it to
Is
her
H2O
daughter.
the one where she hits his head at the end after the car accident?
You're talking to a guy who hasn't watched that movie in a while.
I've only seen it once, and I was in Ocean City, Maryland, on like summer trip after high school. I don't remember.
Well, there's a scene, if I remember correctly, Michael's over here, and like they're on like a ledge or something, and like I don't remember if I think it's Michael holding Laurie up, maybe, and she's getting ready to fall. But yeah, she gets stabbed, and then she dies.
Really?
Yeah, and then after that movie, which like I said, I'm blanking, but after that movie, it ends up going to her daughter as being the protag. They obviously reverted it for the newer movies.
Definitely not the new ones.
Yeah, they reverted it because 2018 Halloween started after the original.
Right.
So everything
Because
else
it's
was
just
wiped.
original Halloween and then Halloween.
Yeah, original Halloween.
Halloween.
And then
Halloween kills.
Halloween ends. Yeah,
Man,
sorry.
they really should have gave that first one a subtitle.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry for anyone who's actually like
They should
super
have called it
fresh
Halloween
on the
Night.
Halloween series because I definitely butchered Laurie and Michael's fight, and I also am blanking on the movies right now because it's been so long. I'm rewatching Friday the 13th right now as we speak, so Halloween's a little pushed back in my mind. But yes, there is a movie where Laurie Strode dies, and I'm pretty sure it carries on to the daughter because she has a daughter and it goes to her.
Interesting. Yeah, I think about the Halloween franchise and I grimace. I really just the first one's so good. But anyway, back to the topic of discussion, which is Scream. To try to, I guess, get back on track, I suppose, just a little bit.
Yeah, we've gotten off track a lot,
I
but at the
know.
same time, I mean,
But it's
we're
relevant.
just
It's
chill.
relevant.
Yeah,
It's
we're
relevant.
just chilling, talking about Scream and some horror movies that tie in with our conversation. So I mean, yeah.
If anything, I think it makes us like qualified to talk about it. We know about the others. We know about the competition.
I mean, my Halloween was getting butchered, so I needed to definitely revamp on that.
But you knew enough to bring it up, so there you go. As a way of like, I guess, kind of like a final verdict on Scream, like, hey, we revisited it, and you know what? It's 96. That's what's it? 28 years?
Yep.
No. Yeah, no, not quite. 27. I don't know when it actually dropped. 4, 3. Yeah, okay. 27 years later. Scream, 27 years later, mental math. I guess the best way to kind of look at it, like I do my reviews like for games.
Mm-hmm.
I break it down into like these, like the plot.
Okay.
And then for games, I would do visuals and audio as two separate categories. What's up?
But before we get to the final verdict and all that
Okay.
stuff, we definitely still have to touch on Casey Becker in the opening scene.
Oh my god.
His opening scene is definitely probably more iconic than the garage scene. 100%.
Iconic because it's a fuck you.
Because-
in a way. It's like, what's your
So what
expectations?
is, let's talk back into the 90s, 96 when this movie came out, I believe. Back in the 90s, Drew Barrymore, dude, she was huge. And, she was on the poster for the film. She was...
The fat jokes aren't funny.
Ha ha ha. And she was literally, credited as one of the biggest stars in the movie. She was plastered everywhere for this film.
When we went to rent it, her name was the first on like the list of like names. Like it wasn't Neve Campbell, it wasn't even David Arquette, Courtney Cox. It was still
Drew Barrymore.
Yep.
And wouldn't you know, she's the first kill in the movie. So that's what really made a big holy crap, because throughout, the whole marketing scheme. It was like, yo, Drew Barrymore's going to be in here. She's going to be a huge part of this. And then, the audience goes in expecting Drew Barrymore to be in it for a long time.
Right.
She gets killed off within the first 10 minutes. And then they're like, wait, okay, what's this movie going to be about then? So I thought the opening scene is one of the most iconic openings of any horror movie in general. And this is even putting screen bias aside.
No, I think that's correct. Like, if you look at it from the lens of, like, audience expectation going into the movie, it also sets a pretty good tone for the rest of the movie, because it's like...
anything can happen. Like, no one's safe.
I think it's like a good demo for the rest. But yeah, I agree. Anything can happen. There's no characters that you can for sure rely on. I mean, the character on the poster, usually you can think, oh, they're going to make it to the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. There's no one else on the poster.
Mm-hmm. So, and like, when it comes to Drew Barrymore's opening scene, I think what also makes it iconic is the whole entrance of kind of showing, hey, this horror movie is going to reference a bunch of other horror movies. Because like, it had the whole trivia part where she's getting called by Ghostface. And she has to answer these things, or Steve, her boyfriend out in the patio, is going to die.
Right.
She has to answer who the killer is in Halloween, which she gets Michael, and then she does a trick. He does a trick question for her, where who's the killer in Friday the 13th. She's like Jason, which is what a lot of people's mind goes to, but originally it was his mom.
Right.
The mom was the one who went on the rampage in the original film, and that's what gets Steve to die.
Yes.
Because she answers incorrectly.
But yeah, like it's self-referential. It's referential to basically all of its inspirations off the bat. And then on top of that, it throws in a good bit of like comedy in with, like, there's comedic timing to even the scenes in the beginning. Like when she answers the phone, like, whoever this is, I'm going to, you're going to be sorry or whatever. And then he's like, don't you hang up on me, or I'm going to, all this and that. And it's just interesting, the blend of like the thriller, which I wouldn't really say the opening scene is too much of horror, but I don't know, like more of a thrilling thing. Usually when it's not supernatural, I kind of lead towards it being like a thriller thing.
I would agree there.
And you know what I mean? Like, horror to me is a lot of unknown. Like, the unknown here is like, it's like a reverse murder mystery.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know kind of know who the killer is. It's Ghostface. You don't know who Ghostface is.
Yeah, you don't know who's under the mask.
And you don't know who necessarily is going to die throughout the movie. Usually, murder mysteries, they start off, this person's dead. Who did it? And then you have to find out who is going to do it, or, who else might die, as well as who is actually doing the killings. So it's like a nice little double twist, which kind of goes back around and Knives Out from the beginning. Like I said, the beginning is a good demo for the rest of the movie because it has all of the aspects of the rest of the movie in like that quick opening scene.
Yeah. It really just shows you right what the tone's going to be right off the rip.
Right.
But the thing is, too, is I knew a lot of people who never watched Scream originally. You weren't one of... I don't know how you thought going into it, watching the first time with me. But I knew a lot of people, too, in my time where I would watch Scream with them for the first time. And they would immediately picture Scary Movie. So they would go in thinking it's going to be a very, very hilarious, stupid kind of movie more than any, like, serious...
Right.
Like slashery,
right.
Like they're like, oh yeah, obviously there's going to be kills, but like they're thinking it's going to be more of a spoof, scary movie, funny type of thing.
And it almost plays it that way.
It does, but it does it more. I don't want to. I'm going to be real with you. They do it more maturely. They don't do like
absolutely.
Yeah, they don't like
when it shows her hanging from the tree, like it straight up does everything that a horror movie would do.
Yeah,
just with a little bit more pizzazz getting there sometimes, or like when Ghostface gets knocked around, he still ends up putting the knife in the person.
That's the thing as to why I think it's so different from other iconic and OG slashers is he's just a dude. He ain't no like supernatural killer. I know Michael Myers is seen as just a dude sometimes too, other times he's supernatural. Right. But Ghostface has always has been a just dude or a girl, and like they're clumsy. They get beat up.
Sometimes they stab each other too many times.
A little bit. But that's what makes it special to me is because they can get hurt. They can die officially. And during these chasing and fight scenes, you see human error. You see them trip. You see them fall. You see them get hit with stuff and react to it.
Which, it's always funny in the moment, but the more you think about it, if you wear a mask like that, it probably does reduce visibility quite a bit.
Everyone always laughs at it. They're like, man, this guy's dumb. Dude's tripping over everything. But like, wearing a mask running around chasing people all over houses you don't really know.
It's got to be a more convenient mask to wear.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Ski mask.
But like that's what makes it cool, too.
Maybe a hockey mask.
Is they say in this film, they say that they just get it from like a Halloween store. So like they're everywhere. It's not like just for this killer's collection. It's literally just a Halloween outfit.
Well,
So,
isn't Michael Myers' mask like an Inside Out? What's his name? The
yeah,
Star
it
Trek
is
guy.
molded. It's molded after
Star Trek guy, William Shatner.
Yes, it is molded
Right?
after him. Correct.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that, and I just thought,
I'm pretty
if I
sure
were him, I would say, please pay me money every time you use that mask.
I'm pretty sure as far as Ghostface went, they just got it from that Halloween. Like they just made like a different, like bunch of different masks, and I think they found it like, did they find it in like an attic or something? I remember reading about this, but they were like on set and they went like somewhere and like on the set, and there was just a bunch of different Halloween like outfits and masks and stuff, and
Yeah.
then they saw that one, they're like, this is it, this is the one.
Interesting. Well, is there anything else we wanted to cover before we kind of go into like a final thoughts on the movie?
Well, we talked about the opening scene, Drew Barrymore,
Yeah.
and we talked about the killers, Billy and Stu. We talked about
Favorite
Nev
moments.
Campbell and her playing Sydney. We've talked about the legendary Randy Meeks, who is just all of us watching this movie, being the nerd. Also,
Right.
before we end this, 3 rules Randy has. You live in or die in the horror movie.
Well,
Rule number 1, you can't have sex, so...
my 1-year-old child
So what
is
you're
gonna
saying...
get me killed.
Yeah, so what you're saying is she's going to get you killed.
Yeah. Unless
Okay.
unless it's a human meat shield.
Rule 2, I don't really see you do this very often, but do you drink?
Is it drink? Yeah. So it's drinking and then getting high, right?
It's drinking and
drinking
drugs.
drinking and drugs is one, and then the last one is
Never say you'll...
I'll be
Be
right
right
back.
back.
Yeah. Okay. So drinking and drugs. No. That's I think I'm good on that one. So I think that would at least guarantee me like a second spot.
Yeah, like
In-
maybe.
in the, like make it to the last half of the film.
Now, could you-
whatever one I'm surviving.
Now, could you go through the whole movie without saying, I'll be right back? Is that a thing?
See-
Is that a phrase you say often?
Here's
Or-
here's the problem. Sometimes, I don't want to say I say it all the time, but there are points in my life where I realize that I'm like, I have to go get something and someone's in this room and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to get whatever you need. I'll be right back. I might be a first halfer. I'm not going to lie.
First halfer?
It's 2 out of 3.
Okay, cool. So you got like Sydney. At the end of the movie, she wasn't a virgin anymore, but we don't see her drink or do any drugs, and we
Yeah.
don't see her say, "I'll be right back." So she, even not being a virgin anymore, she goes through.
Stu said I'll be right back multiple times. I think they canceled out.
Yeah. Same with Randy. Randy is a virgin, but he was drinking, and all that stuff.
True.
And he got the curveball. But then again, Sydney being only on the virgin, not being a virgin part, and then Randy doing the alcohol part, they both had 2 rules that they were following. So maybe you only need 2 rules to follow to live. Maybe
Heck.
Randy was lying about the 3 rules step.
They
I
could
don't
be, they could be stuff.
But as far as everything else goes, we've talked about all that stuff. We've talked about Dewey, my boy Dewey, the best character, just saying.
Right.
Talked about Tatum's iconic scene.
Yeah.
We talked about the principal and them using him for
Henry
Yeah.
Winkler, isn't it? Is that who that is? He's in that one. He's in that one show, old people show. I don't even remember what it's called.
Old people show.
Yeah, somebody. If somebody over the age of 30 catches this, they'll be mad that I said that.
I mean, the best scene with the principal is when he thinks he's getting pranked on by
Yeah, yeah.
school kids, and he looks
Yeah.
out, and then Wes Craven himself is dressed up as Freddy Krueger, just mopping, being a janitor.
How do you feel about that? How do you feel about directors putting themselves in their own movies?
Oh, it's great. As long as they don't make it to where they have to be in a bunch of scenes, But like Stan Lee, how he just showed up once every Marvel movie.
Yeah. Well,
that's
that was
fine.
a cool thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Um,
Same with this. Wes Craven just put himself in there.
Are we doing Marvel? Are we gonna do
mean,
Marvel?
We'll do horror for me. We'll do Marvel for you.
Well, I like horror too, so there's horror stuff that we'll do.
I'm gonna say I'm the horror fan, and he's more of the Marvel and actiony person.
I go. Have you seen The Thing?
The Thing?
Yeah, The Thing.
I think I've seen it once, but I could not remember anything of that movie because
When
it's been so long.
I think that's what we should do after we finish Scream.
Okay.
I think that would be a good, because that is in my top 5 favorite movies, and I don't really want to commit to all of it. If we do a franchise, I'd like to go.
Yeah,
Do
just-
it week after week.
Yeah, week after week.
We'll do
Just
it.
bump
So
it
we'll
up.
do Scream for the next 5 weeks after this.
Scream 2 next, baby.
Yeah. Now I haven't seen that more than once, so we'll see
Yeah,
how that goes.
he has seen Scream 2, 3, and 4 once. Even 5. I think you've only seen 5 once, correct?
No, I've seen that twice.
Okay. Well, I've seen all of them billions of times, so it'll be fun to see, again, more inside view on his side, because as a massive fan, you got my biased side, then you got his actual, probably logical side. Yeah. But if we're going to end this now, I imagine we're going... I mean, you usually have a way to send off these videos, so you go ahead and take it, and then I'll follow lead.
I guess, like, to kind of summarize, I don't know, I think this movie kind of, like, de-ages itself in a way, because it's self-referential, and that's kind of the biggest compliment I can give. Like, it feels like a commentary on its own film. Even though it's spoofing other horror movies in the process, it kind of ends up spoofing itself, and it, like, even lays the groundwork, like, oh, you know, when they make a movie about this, you're going to be played by, you know, Tori Spelling or whoever they said it was. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and then in the follow-up movies, they do the stab. Like, they lay the groundwork in this one, and then by following through with the one-off jokes they make in this movie, it kind of, like, predates a lot of its own franchise, like, charm. So in that way, I feel like the movie is both, like, untethered to a lot of the things that people may not like about the sequels, while also being in line with the sequels in a way that it still makes sense for this to be a part of that franchise, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, ultimately, I think this is probably the best Scream movie. You know, visually, probably holds up the worst, even though it's fine. I mean, they're all made in pretty quick succession for the first couple. Timeline-wise, you know, it all made sense. Pacing worked well for me overall. The only scene that really stands out to me is something that I was like, all right, come on now. As soon as she runs in the house after Randy and Stu come at her on the front porch, which, you know, it would make sense if you really think about it as him being the killer, as soon as she closes that door, who comes down the stairs but Billy? And it was literally instantly. I'm like, you couldn't have gave it a second of, like, that panic in her eyes, like, where do I go next? What do I do? Just a few little moments like that, I would have been way more in love with this film. And if those little moments like that or the 30-second delay would have been fleshed out to where it's like just a little bit more tension was added, I feel like this movie would veer more towards the thriller than the comedy. And that to me would make it like a near perfect film rather than a fun time. Which it can be fun regardless. It doesn't matter, you know? Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's what I think.
So what is your rating on the movie?
Do we want to, how do we want to do it? We want to do it out of 10?
We'll do it out of 10. I'll get your take, and then I'll say my stuff.
All right. Well, I guess it's good to set that precedent, because if we're going to do that for every movie going forward, I want to stay consistent.
Yes.
So, realistically speaking, probably like an 8.
An 8?
Yes. I'm confident saying that. I would not go above it. You could, like, if we did, like, decimals, or like half points, I'd say maybe 8.5. Or I could also say 7.5 going into 8. I could lean either way, just depending on how I'm feeling in the moment. But, like, we just watched it, and I felt that was, like, a good 8.
Okay.
So what about yourself?
All right. So for me, as stated before, I am a huge Scream fan, and it is one of my favorite franchises.
4.
What?
You're going to give it a 4.
A 4?
Yep.
Yeah, of course. The thing I love about it so much is the blend of the comedy and the horror. Like, it doesn't go too far into the comedy section, but it doesn't go too far into the horror section either. And I think that's what makes it special for me, because it just blends in perfectly with also the meta commentary on top.
It is a really good blend. And meta is the word I've been trying to search for this whole time. And really? Self-referential is the best I could come up with.
Okay. But the meta commentary part of it, always having something to say outside of what they're trying to say within just the story. Like, there's always something for the audience to pick up on.
Right.
And this franchise was already started off to be a trilogy, as far as I know. Originally it was just supposed to be 3 movies, and then that was one and done.
Right.
And the way I know that is because if you pay attention at the end of Scream 1, at the end of Scream 2, before the credits hit, you see a flash of Ghostface. Scream 3, when it was supposed to end, that doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen.
So they kind of like show like, oh, he's coming back. So going in through just Scream, well, we're just focusing on Scream 1 though. But so as far as Scream 1 goes on its own, the blend, the fact that all the characters are likable. I like all of them. I thought all of them spoke character. I know we were talking earlier about Nev being a little on the dry side at first with her Sydney character, but that's just because we weren't full fleshed out yet.
Yes, I agree with that.
I believe once we get to the end of the movie, I think Sydney is probably the best character in the movie besides Dewey, because Dewey is just a fan favorite of mine because of his wacky dumbness and just being an absolute Chad to Gale. But on top of the whole, it's a 90s movie. And going into it, originally, I thought there was going to be more cheese when I was a wee lad. Right. It's a slasher. Slashers are always cheesy. And though there are bits and pieces that are cheesy, I don't think it's as cheesy as all the other OG icons. You go and watch all those movies and you see some cheese. But, it's a horror movie. It's got its campiness, and that's what makes it a horror slasher. And I think all in all for me, I'm going to be that guy that rates it a 10 out of 10. So, because it's my all-time...
If that's your all-time favorite movie,
Yes.
You don't rate it a 10, I guess that's probably a problem.
Yeah, it's my all-time favorite film. Everything about it I love. I don't really have any gripes about it, other than, I think it was a little too short. I could have used some more time on that movie. Not really. It was perfectly paced. I just would have loved to see more, but we got more movies, so...
Almost 2 hours. That's
1 hour and 50.
That's saying something that you're saying it's too short. Though it never felt like 2 hours while watching.
I was going to say, it goes by quickly.
When I say the pacing works really well, once again, it feels like a quick time.
Yeah, you got your introduction, then you got your peak, and then it goes down. And also that third act is 100% the best third act in any of the Halloween.
Damn, we cannot get away from Halloween.
All the Scream movies. Oh my god. I love the whole usage of Halloween being on in the background. How Halloween did tie into this. That's why I said it. Just it being used in the background, the reveal, just all that super crazy stuff going on with panicking and going back and forth between characters. Perfection. 10 out of 10.
That's fair. I'll give you that. And really, that's it for us. I don't really think there's too much to add right now. We're going to hopefully be doing this every Friday, I think is the plan. So unless something happens to where we can't record for whatever reason and it's a day later, I will always schedule them for Friday. So if for whatever reason I miss, it may be a Saturday, but may or may not do that. But the point being that every Friday you'll have a new Scream movie, at least until the new movie comes out. And then after that, we'll have to either decide what we want to do next or hopefully The Thing, if I get my way. So if you like this and if you made it to the end, consider subscribing to the channel because that helps me and I'm pretty cool. And also,
I'm also cool, somewhat.
And go to his channel if you want to once again plug it here.
BOOWENZ. Just kidding. I haven't really posted much on that yet. I'm still getting into the YouTube kind of stuff here. So, if you like me, basically just tune in here. But eventually, I'll be using it.
And so that's really it. And
maybe next time, see you on Pop Corner again.
Oh yeah, we're still doing. Okay, Pop Corner. Yeah. Once again, not associated with Pop Corners with the S at the end. If they would like to sponsor us, it would be perfect brand synergy, in my opinion.
Yes, sir. That would be legendary.
We will buy a some type of visual device just so we can prove that we are in fact eating them while recording this.
I think in the future, if we continue doing this and we still like doing this, I think we will probably end up actually using video footage anyway.
Yeah.
I think we will actually record ourselves and actually make it, more higher up standards. But as for now, this is it.
For now, like this video or podcast, whatever you want to call it. And
selling out. Like this video and subscribe.
The point being, you got to prove that, hey, it's worth the effort. So
I was going to say, we would love to turn this into like a huge thing to where we could literally react to a bunch of stuff and also do a bunch of different podcasts on different film franchises from horror all the way to Marvel. We're huge nerds, so definitely...
speak for yourself, dude.
We're huge geeks, so if you would love to see us actually get it on the big screen here, definitely hit the sub.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it. So just under an hour, probably cut down a little bit. So 50-something minutes. So yeah, thanks for watching. And hopefully we'll shoot for around this time every-ish time. So yeah, bye.